The champagne flutes clinked in perfect harmony as the countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Olivia Mason scanned the crowded room of her beautifully decorated home, taking in the glittering New Year's Eve party she had spent weeks planning. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the guests in their finest attire. Her gaze settled on her husband, Daniel, who stood across the room, his tall frame leaning casually against the marble fireplace. 7, 6, 5. Daniel's eyes met hers briefly before flicking away, landing instead on Vanessa Rhodes, Olivia's best friend since college. Something in that glance made Olivia's stomach tighten. She'd seen that look before, but never directed at Vanessa. 4, 3. Olivia pushed through the crowd toward them, her emerald green dress catching on someone's watch. The fabric tore slightly, but she hardly noticed. 2, 1. She was still 3 steps away when it happened. As the crowd erupted in celebration, Daniel pulled Vanessa into his arms and kissed her passionately on the lips. Not a friendly peck. Not an accidental brush. A real kiss, the kind Olivia hadn't received from him in months. Happy New Year. The room fell silent as people noticed, their celebrations dying on their lips. Vanessa pushed Daniel away, her eyes wide with shock. Daniel simply laughed, raising his champagne glass. What? He chuckled, looking around at the stunned faces. It's just a New Year's kiss. Lighten up, everyone. A few nervous titters broke out. Someone turned the music back up. Vanessa stammered, Olivia, I didn't, he just... But Olivia stood perfectly still, her face expressionless as she raised her hand to silence her friend. The room grew quiet again. You know, she said, her voice eerily calm, I've actually been waiting for this moment. She reached into the hidden pocket of her dress and pulled out a small USB drive, holding it up for everyone to see. I think it's time for a toast and a little show and tell. 3 months earlier, Olivia closed her laptop with a satisfied sigh. The last of her quarterly financial reports for Mason Architects was complete and ahead of schedule. As the CFO of the firm she and Daniel had built from scratch over the past decade, she took immense pride in their success. What had begun as a small residential design business had grown into one of the most prestigious architectural firms in the city, specializing in sustainable luxury buildings. She glanced at the framed photo on her desk, her and Daniel on their honeymoon in Santorini, smiling with the blue Mediterranean in the background. 8 years of marriage, 12 years together in total. They had weathered the difficult early years of their business, the devastating miscarriage 3 years ago, and emerged stronger. At least, that's what she had always believed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Asterisk still on for dinner night? Daniel said he'd be working late again. So perfect girls' night opportunity. Asterisk. Olivia frowned slightly. This was the 3rd time this week Daniel had mentioned working late. With their latest hotel project nearing completion, she understood the pressure he was under, but something felt off. She pushed away the nagging doubt and replied to Vanessa. Asterisk absolutely. Trattoria at 7, asterisk. Later that evening, Olivia sat across from Vanessa at their favorite Italian restaurant, swirling a glass of Chianti as her friend regaled her with stories from her recent business trip to Milan. As an interior designer who often collaborated with Mason Architects, Vanessa had become almost as much a fixture in their professional life as in their personal one. So then the Italian supplier tells me the marble we ordered won't be available for another 6 months. Can you imagine what Daniel would say? Vanessa laughed, taking a sip of her wine. He'd probably design an entirely new concept overnight just to spite them. Olivia smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Vanessa tilted her head, studying Olivia. What's wrong? You've been distracted all evening. Olivia sighed, placing her glass down. I don't know. Daniel's been distant lately. Working late almost every night, barely talking about his day. When was the last time you saw him at the office after hours? A flicker of something discomfort crossed Vanessa's face before she replied, You know how he gets with deadline pressure. The Meridian Hotel project is his baby. I know, but it's more than that. Last weekend I suggested we take the boat out. He loves sailing, and he said he was too tired. Then I saw on his credit card statement that he had lunch at Lawrence on Monday. Olivia paused. That's our special occasion restaurant. We haven't been there together in over a year. Vanessa reached across the table, squeezing Olivia's hand. Have you talked to him about it? I tried. He said I was overthinking things, that I should focus on the Westfield Corporation account I've been pursuing instead of inventing problems. That sounds dismissive, Vanessa frowned. It's not like him, Olivia agreed. We've always been a team, in business and in marriage. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it briefly before turning it face down on the table. Maybe you should surprise him at the office one night. Bring dinner, remind him there's life outside those blueprints. Maybe, Olivia nodded, noticing how quickly Vanessa had dismissed her message. How's your love life, anyway? Still seeing that art dealer? Stefan? No, that fizzled out last month. Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. Men are too complicated right now. I'm focusing on the new downtown loft project. As the evening progressed, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa was holding something back. Her normally effusive friend seemed guarded, changing the subject whenever the conversation drifted toward Daniel or the firm. The following day, Olivia decided to take Vanessa's advice. She ordered Daniel's favorite sushi from Akira and drove to the office around 8 p.m., expecting to find him hunched over his drafting table or lost in a 3D model on his computer. The Mason Architects building was a converted warehouse they had redesigned themselves, open concept with glass-walled offices and a rooftop garden. Only a few lights remained on as she entered, nodding to Miguel, the night security guard. Evening, Mrs. Mason. Working late. Just bringing dinner for my workaholic husband, she smiled, holding up the bag. Mr. Mason? I haven't seen him since about 6, ma'am. Olivia's steps faltered. Are you sure? He said he'd be working late tonight. Miguel checked his log. Yes, ma'am. He left with Ms. Rhodes about 2 hours ago. Said something about reviewing materials for the Meridian project. With Vanessa? Olivia repeated, her voice hollow. Did they say where they were going?
No, ma'am.
Just that they'd be discussing the project. Olivia thanked him and walked slowly to Daniel's office. It was empty, his computer shut down, drafting table cleared. She placed the sushi bag on his desk and sank into his chair, her mind racing. There could be a perfectly innocent explanation. They could be at a supplier's showroom or meeting with the Meridian Hotel executives. She picked up her phone to call Daniel, but stopped. What would she say? Asterisk, are you cheating on me with my best friend? Asterisk, the very thought was absurd. Daniel and Vanessa had known each other as long as she had known them both. If there had ever been interest between them, it would have surfaced years ago. Instead, she called Vanessa, only to have it go straight to voicemail. She left a casual message asking about their material selection meeting, careful to keep her tone light, then headed home, the sushi forgotten. That night, Daniel returned home after 11, smelling of scotch and wearing a tired smile. When Olivia asked about his evening, he mentioned reviewing tile samples with a project team at the office, never mentioning Vanessa. The lie settled between them like an unwelcome guest as Olivia pretended to believe him. The next morning, she made a decision. Before leaving for work, she went into Daniel's home office and installed a small tracking app on his phone while he was in the shower, something she would have considered an unforgivable invasion of privacy just days earlier. She told herself it was just to put her mind at ease, to prove her suspicions wrong. But what began as a moment of doubt soon became an obsession. Over the next several weeks, Olivia tracked Daniel's movements, noting the discrepancies between where he said he was and where the GPS showed him to be. The Parkview Hotel downtown. A residential address in the upscale Westlake neighborhood. The private marina, where neither of them kept a boat. And always with Vanessa's location matching his. Their deception was methodical, careful. Work meetings provided the perfect cover, with legitimate project discussions presumably happening before or after their rendezvous. They never used their company emails or phones for personal communication. To anyone else, they appeared to be dedicated professionals collaborating on an important project. But Olivia saw the patterns. She noticed how Daniel's demeanor shifted when Vanessa entered a room, the almost imperceptible straightening of his posture, the slightly softer tone in his voice. She observed how Vanessa began dressing differently, favoring the colors and styles Olivia knew Daniel preferred. Still, she needed more than circumstantial evidence and coincidental locations. The lawyer in her, though she had traded corporate law for finance years ago, required proof beyond reasonable doubt. It came on a rainy Tuesday in late October. Daniel had a dentist appointment that mysteriously extended into a full afternoon absence. Vanessa had called in sick. The tracking app showed them both at the Parkview Hotel from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Olivia left the office early, driving to the hotel with her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She parked across the street, watching the entrance through sheets of rain. At 4:15, they merged together under a shared umbrella, Daniel's hand resting possessively on the small of Vanessa's back. They kissed briefly before separating to their respective cars. Olivia sat motionless, rain drumming on the roof of her car, as tears silently tracked down her face. The physical evidence she had sought now burned in her mind, undeniable and devastating. That night, she didn't confront Daniel. Instead, she began gathering information methodically. Financial records, calendar entries, location data, text messages she recovered from cloud backups after figuring out his password. She learned that the affair had begun 6 months earlier, after Vanessa and Daniel had traveled to Chicago for a design conference, a trip Olivia had been supposed to join before a major client emergency kept her home. What started as dinner and drinks had escalated into something that now threatened to destroy 3 lives. Most painful were the intimate details, the plans they discussed, the future they imagined. Daniel had apparently confided that his marriage to Olivia had become all business, that they had grown apart after the miscarriage. Vanessa expressed guilt about betraying her friendship, but rationalized that Olivia was married to her spreadsheets and hadn't made Daniel happy for years. They had even discussed how and when to tell Olivia, always finding reasons to delay an important client, a holiday, the annual charity gala Olivia organized. Their cowardice was perhaps the most insulting aspect of all. As November turned to December, Olivia maintained a flawless facade. She attended client meetings with unwavering professionalism. She hosted dinner parties where she watched Daniel and Vanessa perform their careful dance of casual friendship. She even helped plan the firm's New Year's Eve party, to be held at her and Daniel's home, inviting all their friends and colleagues to witness the countdown to the new year. A countdown to something else entirely. The USB drive in Olivia's hand felt heavier than its negligible weight as she stood before her stunned party guests. Daniel's smug expression had faltered, replaced by confusion that was rapidly evolving into alarm. "Liv, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice tight. "What I should have done months ago," she replied, walking calmly to the large flat-screen TV mounted on the living room wall. "I think it's time we had some transparency in our relationships, don't you?" Vanessa stepped forward, her face pale. "Olivia, whatever you think is happening. Save it, Vanessa." Olivia cut her off without looking at her. "I've heard enough of your lies to last a lifetime." The room had gone completely silent as Olivia connected the USB drive to the TV. She turned to address the crowd of 30 or so guests, friends, colleagues, clients, who stood frozen in uncomfortable anticipation. "I apologize for the interruption to our festivities," she said with remarkable composure, "but I thought it might be educational to share what I've discovered about my husband and my best friend." The screen came to life, displaying a folder of neatly labeled files. Olivia selected one titled Parkview Hotel, October 15th. A series of photos appeared, Daniel and Vanessa entering the hotel, then later emerging under the umbrella, kissing before parting ways. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel lunged forward, reaching for the remote in Olivia's hand. "That's enough," he hissed. Olivia sidestepped him smoothly. "Oh, we're just getting started. How about we look at your text message history?" She opened another file, screenshots of conversations between Daniel and Vanessa, with timestamps and dates meticulously documented. *Daniel, September 3rd, miss you already. Can't wait for Chicago next week. O thinks it's just a client meeting, asterisk. Asterisk Vanessa. September 3rd, we need to be careful. She's my best friend, D. Sometimes I can't believe what we're doing, asterisk. Asterisk Daniel. September 3rd, but you can't stop either, can you? Because what we have is real. More real than anything I've felt in years, asterisk. Olivia continued scrolling through the messages as Daniel stood paralyzed, watching his betrayal broadcast to everyone they knew. Vanessa had covered her face with her hands, unable to look at the screen or meet anyone's eyes. Here's a particularly interesting exchange from November, Olivia said, her voice only slightly wavering as she selected another file. Asterisk Vanessa, November 12th, when are we going to tell her? This sneaking around is killing me. Asterisk. Asterisk Daniel, November 12th, after the Westfield deal closes. She's worked too hard on it. Would destroy her focus. Asterisk. Asterisk Vanessa, November 12th, and us? What's the plan? Asterisk. Asterisk Daniel, November 12th, I've been looking at properties in San Francisco. Fresh start for both of us after the dust settles. Asterisk. A harsh laugh escaped Olivia's throat. San Francisco. How very ambitious. Let me guess, you were planning to take half the firm with you? Set up a competing business on the West Coast. Daniel finally found his voice. Olivia, please. Not like this. We can talk privately. Like you talked privately about me, she countered, her calm demeanor finally cracking. Planning your exit strategy while sleeping in my bed? Using the business we built together as collateral for your new life with my best friend. She turned to the next file, this one a spreadsheet showing financial transfers. Substantial sums moved from the company's operational accounts to a separate LLC registered in Daniel's name alone. This is where things get really interesting, Olivia said, addressing the room again. While I was landing the Westfield account, a $30 million project, by the way, my husband was systematically siphoning funds from our company into his personal vehicle. Nearly $2 million over 6 months. Several people gasped. Among the guests were their accountant, their lawyer, and representatives from 2 major clients. That's a lie, Daniel said sharply, but his face had drained of color. Is it? Strange, because I have the wire transfers right here, Olivia replied, highlighting a row of transactions. Embezzlement is such an ugly word, but I'm not sure what else to call it. Vanessa had finally looked up, shock evident on her face as she turned to Daniel. You stole from the company? You never said anything about that. I didn't steal anything, Daniel insisted, looking around desperately. I was restructuring our holdings for tax purposes. Olivia's making it sound criminal when it was completely legitimate. Legitimate. Olivia echoed incredulously. Is that why you forged my signature as co-owner? Is that why the account was opened with falsified operating agreements that excluded me as a beneficiary? She clicked to another document, the LLC formation papers with what was clearly a poor imitation of her signature. You know, the affair I might have eventually forgiven, Olivia continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried through the silent room. People fall out of love. They make mistakes. But stealing from me? From the company we built together through years of sacrifice and hard work? Using my best friend to help cover your tracks while you plan to destroy everything I've worked for. Daniel looked around wildly, seeing the judgment in the eyes of everyone present. His professional reputation was disintegrating before him, along with any sympathy he might have garnered in the divorce that would inevitably follow. This is all being taken completely out of context, he stammered. The money was for a surprise development project, a gift for Olivia. I was going to tell you, he said, turning to his wife with pleading eyes. A gift. Olivia laughed bitterly. Like the bracelet you bought Vanessa for her birthday? The one identical to the one you gave me last Christmas? She turned to her former friend. Did you really think I would notice you wearing it at the Hendersons' dinner party? Vanessa flinched visibly. I didn't know, she whispered. About the money, about the bracelet being the same? Olivia, I swear. What exactly didn't you know, Vanessa? That you were sleeping with my husband or that he was a thief as well as a liar? Olivia's composure was failing now, her voice rising with each word. Was I such a terrible friend that I deserved this level of betrayal? Did I ever once give you reason to think I would hurt you this way? The raw pain in her questions hung in the air, unanswerable. Several guests had begun quietly gathering their coats, eager to escape the implosion of the Mason marriage and the public humiliation of everyone involved. "I think," said a calm voice from the back of the room, "that this party is over." Rebecca Chen, Olivia's college roommate and now a senior partner at one of the city's most prestigious law firms, stepped forward. She placed a protective arm around Olivia's shoulders. "Anyone who needs to speak with Olivia can contact my office tomorrow," she announced to the room at large, her tone brooking no argument. "Daniel, I suggest you find somewhere else to stay tonight. And perhaps retain counsel." Daniel looked desperately around the room, finding no allies among the averted gazes and uncomfortable expressions. Even Vanessa had backed away from him, her earlier shock transforming into anger as the full implications of his financial misconduct became clear. "You've ruined everything," he said finally to Olivia, his voice hollow. "No, Daniel," she replied, removing the USB drive from the TV. "You did that all by yourself. I just made sure you couldn't ruin me too." 3 days after the disastrous New Year's Eve party, Olivia sat in Rebecca's corner office overlooking the city skyline. The preliminary divorce papers lay on the glass desk between them, along with documentation for a financial fraud case against Daniel. "The forensic accountants found more," Rebecca said, sliding a folder toward Olivia. "He didn't just take the $2 million you discovered. There were several other transactions disguised as vendor payments. The total is closer to $3.5 million. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this latest betrayal. "And the company? Can it be saved?" "With you at the helm, absolutely. The Westfield contract alone will keep you afloat while we recover the stolen funds. And several of your clients have already reached out to confirm they're staying with you, not following Daniel." A knock at the door interrupted them. Rebecca's assistant poked her head in. "Ms. Rhodes is here for her appointment." Olivia tensed, smoothing her skirt unnecessarily. "Send her in." Vanessa entered cautiously, looking nothing like the confident interior designer who had once commanded rooms with her presence. Her normally impeccable appearance was subdued. Minimal makeup, hair pulled back simply, wearing a plain gray sweater and black pants. "Thank you for seeing me," she said quietly, taking the chair Rebecca indicated before excusing herself to give them privacy. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. 8 years of friendship hung between them. Birthdays, vacations, late-night confidences, professional triumphs shared and celebrated. "I didn't know about the money," Vanessa finally said. "I need you to believe that." "I do," Olivia replied, surprising herself with the admission. Daniel compartmentalized everything. It's what made him such a good architect and such an effective liar. Vanessa flinched, but didn't dispute the characterization. "I've been trying to understand how we got here. How I could have done this to you. There's no excuse, none, but I keep searching for the moment when I cross that line." "Chicago," Olivia said flatly. "The design conference." Vanessa looked up sharply. "How did you know?" "The hotel receipts. 1 room for 3 nights, but 2 room service breakfasts each morning. Champagne the first night." Olivia's voice was clinical, detached, as though discussing evidence in a case unrelated to her life. "You were supposed to be there," Vanessa whispered. "If you hadn't had that client emergency." "Don't you dare." Olivia cut her off, ice in her tone. "Don't you dare suggest this happened because I was working too hard. Because I prioritized our company, the same company that pays for your luxury condo and your European vacations." Vanessa recoiled as though slapped. "That's not what I meant. I'm just trying to explain that there was never a plan to pursue Daniel. It just happened." "For 6 months? Secret hotel meetings and weekend trips just happened for half a year while you looked me in the eye and pretended to be my friend." "I hated myself every day," Vanessa's voice cracked. "I told Daniel repeatedly we needed to end it, to tell you the truth. Yet somehow you never quite managed to do either," Olivia observed coolly. Vanessa's shoulders sagged in defeat. "No, I didn't. And that failure will haunt me for the rest of my life." Silence stretched between them again. Through the large windows, the city continued its rhythmic pulse. People moving through their days, unaware of the small human tragedy unfolding in this sleek corner office. "What do you want, Vanessa?" Olivia finally asked. "Forgiveness? Absolution? To know that we can somehow salvage something from this wreckage." "I don't expect forgiveness," Vanessa replied quietly. "I wouldn't forgive me either. I came because I have information about Daniel you should have." She reached into her bag and withdrew a small leather-bound notebook. "After your presentation at the party, I went home and found this. Daniel left it at my place the week before Christmas. I think he was using it to keep track of his financial maneuvers." Olivia took the notebook cautiously, as though it might bite. Opening it revealed pages of Daniel's distinctive architectural handwriting, columns of numbers, account references, and cryptic notations. "There's more," Vanessa continued. "On page 17, he lists a property in Malibu. I think that's where the money went, not San Francisco. He was planning to open a satellite office in Southern California." "Without me," Olivia said quietly. "Without either of us, I think," Vanessa replied, a bitter edge to her voice. "There are notes about hiring a new lead designer from a firm in Los Angeles. Someone named Sophia Winters." Olivia felt a hollow laugh build in her chest. "So, I wasn't the only one being replaced. How convenient for him." "I've been blind," Vanessa acknowledged, blinking back tears. "Willfully, stupidly blind. He made me believe," she trailed off, shaking her head, "that I was the villain in your love story?" Olivia supplied. The cold, career-obsessed wife who didn't appreciate her brilliant husband. Vanessa didn't deny it. "He said you two had grown apart after the miscarriage, that you'd buried yourself in work to avoid dealing with the loss." The mention of their lost baby hit Olivia like a physical blow. "He told you about that?" "Yes," Vanessa admitted. "He said it was the turning point in your marriage." "The miscarriage nearly destroyed me," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Us, I thought. But apparently just me. Do you know why I buried myself in work afterward? Because Daniel couldn't bear to talk about it. He said we needed to move forward, focus on the future. The extra hours I put in at the office were because he stopped coming home for dinner. He said being in our house reminded him too much of the nursery we'd prepared." Tears spilled down Vanessa's cheeks now. "I didn't know. He made it sound like you were the one who pulled away." "We both did, in different ways," Olivia acknowledged. "But I never stopped loving him. I never betrayed him. And I certainly never stole from him." She stood suddenly, the notebook clutched in her hand. "I'm going to give this to Rebecca. It could be crucial evidence for the fraud case." Vanessa nodded, remaining seated. "I understand. I've also spoken to the police. They want to interview me about what I might have witnessed regarding the company finances." "And what will you tell them?" Olivia asked, pausing at the door. "The truth," Vanessa said simply. "Everything I know. It won't make up for what I've done to you, but it's the least I can do." Olivia studied her former friend, seeing the genuine remorse in her eyes alongside the knowledge that some betrayals can never be undone. "You know we can never go back," she said finally. "Whatever friendship we had is gone." "I know," Vanessa whispered. "I destroyed that all by myself." Olivia nodded once before opening the door. "Goodbye, Vanessa." She didn't wait for a response before walking away. Later that evening, Olivia returned to the house she had shared with Daniel, now eerily quiet without his presence. Rebecca had arranged for the locks to be changed, but she still felt like an intruder in her own home. She was pouring a glass of wine when the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, she saw Daniel standing on the porch, shoulders hunched against the January cold. Against her better judgment, she buzzed him in, meeting him in the foyer rather than inviting him further into the house. "You changed the locks," he observed, his voice hoarse. "Yes." He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same coat he'd had on at the New Year's party. "I came to get some of my things," he said. "Your clothes and personal items are packed in boxes in the garage." Rebecca thought it would be best if you didn't enter the house given the pending litigation. Daniel winced at the formal language, so at odds with their 12 years together. "Liv, we need to talk about this. About us." There is no us anymore, Daniel. Just two people who used to be married and are now adversaries in a fraud case. Is that what you want? To see me go to prison? He asked, a desperate edge to his voice. What I wanted was a husband who loved and respected me, she replied evenly. What I wanted was a marriage based on trust and mutual support. What I wanted was to grow old with the man I believed you to be. But that man doesn't exist, does he? Daniel's facade crumbled. I made terrible mistakes. Unforgivable ones. But everything spiraled out of control so quickly. The affair, the money. I never meant for any of it to happen. Yet you made countless deliberate choices that led us here, Olivia countered. Each lie, each secret meeting, each dollar transferred. Those weren't accidents, Daniel. They were decisions you made every single day for months. I did love you, he insisted. For most of our marriage, I loved you more than anything.
Until you didn't, she said simply.
Until it became easier to betray me than to work on our problems. Until stealing from me seemed more appealing than talking to me. The money, he began, running a hand through his disheveled hair. I can explain. Save it for your attorney. Olivia cut him off. Or for the detective who'll be interviewing you tomorrow. Daniel's eyes widened in alarm. You're really going through with criminal charges? The company is going through with criminal charges, she corrected him. The board voted unanimously this morning. Even your brother. This news seemed to hit Daniel hardest of all. His brother James had been with them from the beginning, believing in Daniel's vision when no one else would. James voted against me? He asked, his voice small. He said he couldn't support someone who would betray their partner both personally and professionally. That it spoke to a fundamental character flaw he couldn't ignore, even for his brother. Daniel sagged against the wall, the full weight of his actions finally seeming to register. I've lost everything, haven't I? Olivia felt no satisfaction in his despair, only a profound sadness for what might have been. You threw it away, Daniel. There's a difference. She moved toward the door, signaling that their conversation was over. The garage code is the same. Take your things and leave the key on the workbench. Where will I go? He asked, sounding genuinely lost. That stopped being my concern the first time you kissed my best friend, Olivia replied, her voice finally breaking on the last words. Goodbye, Daniel. As she closed the door on her husband for the final time, Olivia allowed herself a moment of private grief for the death of her marriage, for the life she had planned, for the future that would now take a radically different shape. Then she straightened her shoulders, wiped away a single tear, and turned back toward the empty house that was now solely hers. There was work to be done. 6 months later, the summer sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the newly renovated Mason Architects headquarters. Olivia stood at the head of the conference table, presenting the quarterly results to the board and key team members. As you can see, despite the turmoil of the first quarter, we've not only stabilized but shown remarkable growth, she concluded, gesturing to the projection screen behind her. The Westfield project is on schedule and under budget. We've secured 2 additional major contracts, and our reputation has, somewhat ironically, been enhanced by our transparent handling of the internal fraud case. James Mason, Daniel's brother and now Chief Operations Officer, nodded in approval. Clients appreciate integrity. The way you managed the crisis showed exactly that. The meeting adjourned with congratulations all around. As the room cleared, Rebecca lingered behind, elegant as always in a tailored navy suit. The sentencing is tomorrow, she reminded Olivia gently. Are you still planning to attend? Olivia gathered her materials, taking a moment to consider. Yes. I need to see it through to the end. Rebecca studied her friend carefully. How are you feeling about it? Conflicted, Olivia admitted. I never wanted to see Daniel in prison, but I couldn't let him simply walk away from what he did to the company. Too many people's livelihoods were at stake. The plea deal is fair, Rebecca assured her. 18 months in a minimum security facility, full restitution to the company, 5 years probation afterward. It could have been much worse. Olivia nodded, knowing it was true. The evidence against Daniel had been overwhelming, particularly after forensic accountants discovered the full extent of his embezzlement. The Malibu property had been seized and liquidated, the proceeds returned to Mason Architects. "Have you heard from Vanessa?" Rebecca asked carefully. "Not directly," Olivia replied. "I know she testified against Daniel in exchange for immunity from any potential conspiracy charges. Her testimony was apparently quite damning. She's moved to Seattle, I heard. Fresh start." "Good for her," Olivia said, surprised to find she meant it. The white-hot anger she had felt toward her former friend had gradually cooled to a dull ache of disappointment. She was collateral damage in Daniel's greater scheme, in some ways. Not innocent, but not the architect of the destruction either. They walked together toward the elevator, passing the wall of awards and recognition that Mason Architects had accumulated over the years. Among them now hung a framed magazine cover from Architectural Digest featuring Olivia, Phoenix Rising, How Olivia Mason Rebuilt Her Legacy from the Ashes of Betrayal. "Speaking of fresh starts," Rebecca said as they descended to the lobby, "how was your date last night?" A small smile played at Olivia's lips. "Surprisingly nice."
Paul is different.
"Thoughtful. No connection to the architecture world whatsoever, which is refreshing." "The literature professor? He sounds perfect." "It's very new," Olivia cautioned. "And I'm not sure I'm ready for anything serious yet. But it's nice to remember there's life beyond all of this." Outside, the summer afternoon bustled with energy. Olivia paused on the sidewalk, lifting her face to the warm sun. "Will you be okay tomorrow?" Rebecca asked, concern evident in her voice. "Yes," Olivia said with quiet certainty. "Whatever happens, it's the final chapter in that story. After tomorrow, I never have to see Daniel again, if I don't want to." "And Vanessa?" Olivia considered this. "Maybe someday, years from now, we might be able to have a civil conversation. But the friendship we had? That's gone forever. Some betrayals can't be undone." Rebecca squeezed her arm supportively before hailing a taxi. "Call me if you need anything before court tomorrow." Alone on the sidewalk, Olivia decided to walk the 15 blocks to her new apartment rather than return to the office. The company was thriving under her leadership. The crisis that had threatened to destroy everything she had built had instead revealed her strength, resilience, and business acumen to a world that had previously seen her primarily as Daniel Mason's wife. As she walked, she thought about the woman she had been on that New Year's Eve, wounded, angry, out for a justified revenge. The public exposure of Daniel and Vanessa's betrayal had been satisfying in the moment, but the real victory had come in the months that followed. She had rebuilt the company stronger than before. She had formed new friendships and strengthened old ones. She had rediscovered parts of herself that had become subsumed in her marriage: her love of sailing, her interest in photography, her enjoyment of solitary mornings with nothing but coffee and a good book for company. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. The last of Daniel's possessions had been donated to charity. The house, too full of memories both good and painful, had been sold, and Olivia had moved into a sleek downtown apartment with views of the river. Tomorrow, she would watch as Daniel received his sentence, not with vindictive pleasure, but with a sense of closure. Justice would be served, not just for her, but for everyone his actions had harmed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Paul. Thinking about you. Dinner tomorrow night? Olivia smiled as she typed her reply. Yes. Looking forward to it. As she continued walking, she realized something profound had shifted within her. The pain hadn't disappeared. She doubted it ever would completely, but it no longer defined her. What Daniel and Vanessa had done was now just one chapter in her story, not the whole book. The next morning, Olivia dressed carefully in a simple gray suit, her hair swept into a neat chignon. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. The case had attracted significant attention in both business and social circles. She entered through a side door, escorted by Rebecca to a seat near the front of the courtroom. Daniel was already there with his attorney, looking diminished in a suit that seemed slightly too large for his frame. He glanced at her briefly, his eyes conveying a complicated mixture of remorse, resentment, and resignation. The proceedings moved quickly. The judge reviewed the plea agreement, confirmed Daniel's guilty plea to multiple counts of embezzlement and fraud, and delivered the agreed-upon sentence. Mr. Mason, your actions represent a profound breach of trust to your company, your employees, your partners, and your family, the judge stated firmly. While the court acknowledges your acceptance of responsibility through this plea, the calculated nature of your crimes requires significant consequences. Daniel stood impassively as the sentence was pronounced. 18 months incarceration, followed by 5 years of probation, full restitution of all stolen funds plus interest, and 200 hours of community service. As court officers approached to take him into custody, Daniel turned toward Olivia. "May I have a moment?" he asked the judge, who reluctantly nodded. Daniel approached the barrier separating him from the gallery, stopping a respectful distance from Olivia. "I know it doesn't change anything," he said quietly, "but I am sorry, Liv. Not just for getting caught, but for all of it. You deserved better." Olivia met his gaze steadily. "Yes, I did. But I've found it now. A better life, a stronger company, a clearer understanding of who I am and what I'm capable of." "I'm glad," he said, and she was surprised to see he appeared to mean it. "The firm was always more yours than mine anyway. You were the one who made it work, made it last." "Goodbye, Daniel," she said simply. He nodded once before turning back to the waiting officers. As they led him away, Olivia felt the final thread connecting them sever cleanly. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for a statement. With Rebecca's steadying presence beside her, Olivia addressed them briefly. "Mason Architects continues to thrive despite the unfortunate actions of one individual. We remain committed to our clients, our employees, and our vision of sustainable, innovative design." "That's all I have to say about today's proceedings." A persistent reporter called out, "Ms. Mason, do you feel justice was served?" Olivia paused, considering the question carefully. "Justice isn't about revenge," she said finally. "It's about restoration, making things right to the extent possible. For our company, that process is well underway. For me personally," she smiled slightly, "let's just say I've discovered that the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living truthfully, with integrity, surrounded by people who value the same." Later that evening, as promised, she met Paul for dinner at a small Italian restaurant overlooking the river. He greeted her with a warm smile and gentle concern in his eyes. "How are you?" he asked, taking her hand across the table. "I'm good," she replied, realizing with mild surprise that it was true. "Really good, actually." "To new beginnings," Paul said, raising his glass. Olivia clinked her glass against his, a genuine smile lighting her face. "To truth, wherever it leads us." Outside, the summer night unfurled with promise. Inside, Olivia Mason, architect, survivor, Phoenix, embraced the future she had salvaged from betrayal and rebuilt with her own steady hands.